The air around it seems to hum with a latent energy. You approach, your breath held tight in your chest. The script is clear, precise, written by a hand that valued function over flourish. You lean in, the torchlight illuminating the first sentence. It is not philosophy. It is not a prayer. It is a title, followed by a diagram of such terrifying and beautiful ingenuity that the air is punched from your lungs. It is a blueprint, De Re Edificatoria Anime, on the architecture of the soul. It's the old knowledge of the earth, of roots and leaves, of clean water, and the simple, powerful magic of separation. To admit this knowledge works would be to admit God's will was not the only force at play. It would be to confess that human intellect, human observation, and ancient earthbound wisdom held the key to survival. It's the same dangerous idea modern institutions face when confronted with data that contradicts their profitable, established narrative. The terrifying notion that the experts might be wrong and the power might actually belong to the people. You push through a crush of bodies, the damp wool of a stranger's cloak scraping against your cheek. You are looking for a ghost, a man whose entire existence is a lie. And there he is, slumped against the damp stone of the fishmonger's wall, his face a perfect sculpture of misery, his eyes hollowed out by a hunger you know is half performance. He is a masterpiece of invisibility. To the fat merchant who just tossed a coin at his feet, he is vermin. To the guards leaning on their pikes, he is a nuisance to be moved along later. His world has shrunk to the heavy ceramic mortar in front of him, his back a frail curve in the flickering candlelight. You watch his hands, knotted with age but impossibly steady, as he works the pestle. He isn't chanting. He isn't consulting the cryptic texts filled with dragons and sun kings that fool the bishop's men. He is simply mixing sulfur the color of a sickened sun, charcoal black as a sinner's soul, and saltpeter, scraped from the damp walls of the priory's dung heap, a foul work for a holy substance. They didn't burn them for being witches. They burned them for being better doctors. The air in the room is thick with the coppery tang of blood and the sweet, cloying scent of holy incense. It's a smell you've come to associate with death. Your skin crawls. From the corner, a priest's Latin drone scrapes against the stone walls, a monotonous prayer for a soul already halfway to the next world. He has given up on the body. It belongs to God now, he says, and painted on her cheek, you see it. A symbol made of ochre and ash, a tri-spiral spinning into itself, held within a perfect circle. It's the sign of the triple goddess, the mark of the old way, a secret passed down in whispers from mother to daughter. It is a memory made manifest, a symbol of a faith that refuses to die, a faith rooted not in heaven, but in the dark, fertile earth beneath your feet. It is a rebellion painted on skin. Books on Arab mathematics that suggest the universe operates on numbers, not miracles. Treatises on Roman engineering that show how mortals can build wonders without God's hand. Charts of Germanic astronomy that map the stars with a terrifying, unholy precision. They are here to burn knowledge, to make the world smaller, simpler, and easier to control. The smell of pitch and burning straw drifts through the high windows. The flames are rising. Your brothers are paralyzed. Some whispering prayers, others simply staring, their faces pale masks of dread. But something in you breaks. They were preserving a different vision for humanity, a world built on inquiry, not just faith. It's the same fear every tyrant has ever had, that a single, well-placed idea is more powerful than any army. This library isn't a collection, it's an arsenal. Your gaze falls upon the center of the room. On a simple stone lectern, one book lies open. It is plain, unbound, its pages stitched with coarse, strong thread. It is a book meant to be used, not worshipped. This is the Central Codex, the key that unlocks the network's true purpose. Certain communities, hidden in the historical record, had survival rates over 90%. They weren't saved by divine miracles. They were saved by a secret. This is that secret, breathing all around you. It's a forbidden symphony of knowledge, a combination of advanced quarantine protocols, herbal antivirals, and sanitation practices that seem almost alien in their effectiveness. This wisdom wasn't born in a monastery or handed down from a bishop. It was derived from the very pagan traditions the church had spent centuries trying to stamp out with fire and sword. They told you God hears every word, that the king's law is written in ink for all to see. But the most powerful words in Europe are the ones no one can write down, spoken by men who own nothing but the air in their lungs. You are drowning in the market. The air is thick enough to chew, a foul broth of pig manure, sour wine, and the sweet, cloying smell of death from the butcher's stall. The roar of 100 shouting merchants and haggling wives presses in on you, a physical weight on your ears. The greatest lie they sold you about alchemy wasn't that a man could turn lead into gold. It was that he ever wanted to. The air down here in the cellar is a weapon. It stings the inside of your nose, sharp with the ghost of soured wine and the biting tang of distilled spirits. It tastes of metal and secrets. Cold seeps through the thin leather of your shoes, a constant reminder of the damp earth just inches beneath the flagstones. Your master, Elias, doesn't seem to notice. It is the silent, beating heart of the universe made visible. Before you can ask what he means, a shadow falls over the diagram, long and black against the pale stone. A priest, his robes rustling like dry leaves, stands a few feet away, his face unreadable. Lothar doesn't move. He doesn't erase the lines. He simply holds your gaze, and in his eyes, you see the terrible, exhilarating price of knowing the truth. They controlled inheritance, they controlled bloodlines, they controlled the very social structure of the world. It's the oldest trick in the Book of Power, and it's still used today. When you can't fix people's poverty or their fear of death, you invent a moral panic about their bodies. You tell them their desires are dangerous, their neighbors are deviant, and you make them police each other while you hold the keys to the kingdom. The firelight catches the face of a dancer as she spins past you. Her eyes are closed in ecstasy, her mouth open in a silent cry. It's a coordinated effort to rewrite history by erasing it. In the 20th century, archaeologists excavating a 12th century Danish monastery would find the proof: a book grave, a pit where hundreds of volumes were deliberately buried, burned, and covered in earth. It was the medieval equivalent of scrubbing servers and shredding documents. And tonight, your library is the server. The shouting begins outside. You hear the abbot's voice, thin and pleading. Then the hard, commanding crack of another man's authority. They are coming for the books locked in the western alcove. Women's medical texts filled with herbal knowledge, remedies for fevers, poultices for wounds, and techniques for childbirth that would save millions, all dismissed as witchcraft by the men in robes above. Each book is a universe they tried to collapse into a single approved star. This network, the peasant who hid a scroll in his thatch, the midwife who passed down a recipe in a whispered rhyme, the mason who carved a secret into a cathedral wall. They weren't just saving random facts. You see it now. They are not praying for salvation. They are actively, relentlessly working for it. You see them washing their hands in specially designated basins of vinegar water, placed at the village entrance. Their clothes, hung on lines, are stark white, boiled to a purity you've never witnessed. 99% of people have never heard this, but archaeological evidence from the mass plague pits of the 14th century tells a shocking story. The Black Death was not an equal opportunity killer. It was a predator, and like any predator, it hunted the weak, the unprepared. The screams of the dying fortress behind you are already becoming an echo. The future is an unwritten page before you. You have to find a place to hide this knowledge, a sanctuary in the earth or in the mind of another, where it can wait for 1,000 years if it must. But as the shadows of the mountains swallow you whole, one question burns brighter than the Crusade's fires behind you. Where silence smothers the barn, the lamp flame gutters, threatening to plunge you all into absolute black. Every soul holds their breath, listening to the approaching sentence. You don't know if the rider is coming to join the revolution or to end it before it can even begin. They tell us to look up at the cross, he says, his eyes locking onto yours, fierce and desperate. But all of this, he gestures with the charcoal to the soaring arches, the impossibly thin columns, the entire skeleton of faith rising around you. This points to God. He leans in closer, the smell of sweat and wine on his breath. But not the one in their books. You stare at the point he indicated. It is not a symbol of sacrifice or judgment. It is a point of pure creation, of mathematical truth. This isn't about lust, not in the way the priest describes it. It's about life. It's a ritual to prove to the world, to the gods of root and rain, that you are still here, that you have survived another winter of hunger and fear, and you intend to survive another. The suppression of this joy wasn't about morality. It was a cold, calculated war for control. By seizing control of marriage, of desire, of who could sleep with whom, the church seized control of the future. Every monk in the room has frozen, heads lifted, eyes wide in the flickering light. Fear has a metallic taste, and it's flooding your mouth. The great oak door to the cloister slams shut with a boom that shakes the very floor. The Inquisition has arrived. They are not here to pray. They are here for the heretical collection. What they don't want you to know is that this is not an isolated event. This is policy. For centuries, 99% of people believe the Dark Ages were dark because knowledge was lost. The truth, you realize, is that they were made dark because this knowledge was hunted. Your fingers, trembling, trace the spine of another volume. It's a Viking navigational chart, not a crude map, but a complex stellar projection using sunstones and star paths to cross oceans the Pope's maps insisted were the edge of the world. And next to that, a collection of journals, bound not by monks, but by midwives. The silence isn't one of grief. It's the silence of focused, disciplined work. You see a woman, her face grim, scrubbing her stone doorstep with a stiff brush and a bucket of foaming, lye-heavy water. The rhythmic scrape-swish is the only sound on the lane, an ASMR beat of methodical survival against a backdrop of global chaos. You walk deeper. People see you, but they keep a strange, deliberate distance. There are no huddled masses in the small stone church, no desperate crowds begging for a priest's blessing. Legend will say the last Cathars escaped their mountain fortress with a great treasure. Future generations will imagine the Holy Grail or a chest of Saracen gold. They will hunt for it in caves and beneath castle ruins. They are looking for the wrong thing. You are the treasure. The satchel on your back is the Grail. You are not running to save your life. You are running to save a civilization's mind. As you slip through a hidden postern gate, into the cold embrace of the night, the weight on your back is the only thing that feels real. Imagine being her, knowing your entire life is a debt you can never repay, and this is your only chance to burn the ledger. Ilara rolls the parchment back up. The plan is laid. The code is shared. A fragile, impossible hope ignites in the darkness. Then you hear it. A sound that freezes the blood. The rhythmic, thundering drum of a horse's hooves, coming fast down the muddy track toward the barn. It's not the slow plod of a peasant's cart horse. It is the gallop of a trained steed, the sound of authority, the sound of the gallows. They are building their monument to their God with the blueprints of men they call infidels. It's a quiet betrayal that mirrors the ages. The powerful, always absorbing and monetizing the wisdom of those they oppress. The charcoal scrapes against the limestone, an intimate, dusty sound lost to the wind but deafening to you. This is the real sermon. This is the true faith of the builders. Lothar's calloused finger taps the precise center of the interlocking circles, the point from which all this perfect, divine order expands. The origin. They were fighting folk tradition. They were fighting the memory of a world where your body wasn't a source of shame, but a source of power. You feel a hand grab yours, pulling you into the spinning circle. The rhythm is a living thing, pounded out on a hide drum. It's the sound of a deep, wet thump-thump. A sound that feels less like music and more like a second heartbeat planted inside your own ribs. You are dizzy with the smoke and the spinning. You see a flash of a woman's thigh, the hard muscle of a man's back. It's quiet, the way only a monastery can be quiet. A silence built from layers of prayer and devotion. Until it isn't. It starts as a faint noise from the courtyard below, the sound that doesn't belong. Fingernails scraping against wet stone. You try to ignore it, to focus on the delicate curve of the letter S you are illuminating. But the sound grows, joined by the thud of heavy boots on cobbled ground and the low, guttural murmur of voices that do not speak in prayer. Your quill stills. This is the proof. You move deeper, the soft shush of your leather soles on the dusty floor, the only sound in 1,000 years. Here, a Roman codex bound in cracked leather, its pages filled with diagrams for making concrete that could last millennia. You see the formulas, the engineering that built an empire, knowledge the church declared lost to pagan vanity. Beside it, an Arab treatise on optics, its elegant script detailing how light bends, how lenses can bring the heavens close, or reveal the hidden world in a drop of water. They told you the Black Death was God's random, terrible will. That was the most monstrous lie of all. While the world outside is dying, this village is strangely, unnervingly quiet. You stand at the edge of the settlement, and the very air feels different. It feels clean. There is no scent of decay, no distant sound of the death cart's rumble or the lonely clang of a church bell tolling for another lost soul. Instead, a sharp, medicinal scent wafts from every doorway, a clean, biting aroma of burning herbs, eucalyptus and juniper that scours your lungs. In here are the Gospels they banned, the ones where Christ laughs, and where Mary Magdalene is not a whore, but his most beloved apostle. Each page is a declaration of independence for the human mind. The metallic taste of fear mixes with the smoke in your mouth. You and 3 others were chosen. Not the strongest fighters, but the best keepers. Your mission is not to survive the final siege. It is to ensure that these books do. You are a living vessel for a dead people's memory. This isn't just about this year's grain. It's about breaking the wheel itself. You clutch your pitchfork tighter, the wood digging into your palm. This is the moment your descendants will never read about. The moment you chose between a life on your knees and a death on your feet. You see the hope and the horror in the faces around you. A man next to you, his face a roadmap of famine's past, silently weeps. A young girl, no older than 12, meets your eyes with a gaze as hard as winter's stone. It's a trinity, yes, but not of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's a trinity of proportion, harmony, and light. He tells you these are the laws that command stone to sing, that bend light into divine colors through the rose windows, that make a ceiling of solid rock float as if it were a cloud. This knowledge, he whispers, comes from sun-scorched lands far to the south, from the books of Arab scholars and Greek mystics, books the bishops burn in the public square. The hypocrisy is a metallic taste in your mouth, sharp as fear. For every village that built a church, there was a sacred grove in the woods they refused to cut down. For every prayer to the Virgin, there was a whispered charm to the old spirits of the well. And for every sermon on the damnation of the flesh, there were nights like this. 99% of people believe paganism was wiped out, but the Church's own court records, sealed for nearly 800 years, reveal the truth. They are filled with thousands upon thousands of prosecutions for lewd acts, pagan sympathies, and ungodly congress. They weren't fighting Satan. 99% of people think ancient books were lost to accidental fires and barbarian hordes. The truth is far more sinister. It was a systematic, targeted purge, and it has just arrived at your door. The air in the scriptorium is thick, a heavy blanket of familiar smells. The sweet, cloying scent of melting beeswax, the bitter tang of iron gall ink, and the dusty, almost meaty perfume of aging vellum. Your candle gutters, its small flame, a lonely star in the cold stone universe of this chamber. Your shadow, a hunched and monstrous thing, dances on the wall behind you. The light throws your shadow, a monstrous, dancing giant, against walls that have forgotten the sun. And then the stairs end. You step out into a space that shouldn't exist. It is a library, a vault carved from the bedrock beneath the castle, beneath the monastery that was built to bury it. Your torchlight catches not on gold, but on the spines of countless books and scrolls, stacked on shelves of iron-hard, petrified wood. A tremor runs through you, a feeling of sacrilege and salvation all at once. This is the intellectual inheritance the powerful tried to orphan. It is not the cross of Christ or the sigil of the resident Lord. It's a strange, dualistic emblem, one whispered about in taverns, a symbol of the Cathars, the heretics who were burned on this very ground a century ago. This castle wasn't just built on their fortress, it was built to contain it, The alchemist's map didn't point to a treasure of gold. It pointed to this. And you realize the true fear isn't what this castle can do to your body, but the secret its foundations have been crushing for 100 years. This is the same kind of war, but for a resource far more potent: information. They are here to seize control of what people are allowed to think, to believe, to know. Your knuckles are white as you pull the leather straps of the satchel tight. It's heavy, heavy with the souls of your people, with generations of thought and forbidden wisdom. In here is the knowledge of plants that can heal without a priest's prayer. In here are star charts that defy the church's earth-centric universe. She begins to hum, and the melody is so familiar it makes your teeth ache. The robin builds his nest of clay, she sings softly. Then the new words, the forbidden words. Her voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper, teaching the trigger. But when the frost turns branch to thorn, the wren shall fly at winter's dawn. The wren. That's the signal. A coordinated work stoppage, timed to the first frost, when the harvest is most vulnerable. A single day of inaction could bankrupt a lord, starve his knights, and shatter his power. It is a language of lines and arcs, a dance of circles and triangles that feels more sacred than any sermon you've ever heard. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror and awe. This is the forbidden lesson. 99% of the men toiling on this very cathedral will live and die, knowing only the weight of the stone, not its soul. They will never be shown this. Lothar calls it the secret of the three, and you can feel the power humming in the lines he draws. Their shadows are monstrous things, leaping and twisting in the firelight. This is a celebration the priest, in his cold stone house, would call a satanic orgy. He would see devils in the flickering flames. You just see life. What they don't want you to know is that this never stopped. The story they tell is one of conversion, of saints driving snakes from the land, and pagans joyfully accepting the light. The truth is a far more stubborn, secret thing. It is a heresy, and the symbol you left behind is not a sign of hope. It is a confession. It's not the rot of a tomb or the damp of a well. It's the ghost of a world smelling of brittle paper, dried ink, and a silence so profound it feels like a presence. Your heart is a trapped bird, beating its wings against your ribs. This is it, the place the beggar's map promised, the axis point where the mason's symbol, the alchemist's chart, and the Cathar's dying whisper all converged. You take your sputtering torch and descend. The steps are steep, Roman in their precision, spiraling down into the foundation of the world. Its dark heart was born right here in the medieval mind. You press on, driven by something beyond orders now, a need to conquer the very stone that mocks you. Your group finds a section of wall that feels different, the mortar crumbling. With a final, desperate effort, you smash through it, falling not into another sterile corridor, but into a chamber of older, darker stone. The air is cold, still, and smells of dust and heresy. Carved into the far wall is a symbol that makes your blood run cold. You remember the words of the papal legate, Arnaud Amari, when his soldiers asked how to tell the Cathars from the Catholics in the city. "Kill them all," he commanded, his voice as cold as a crypt. God will know his own. That single command reveals the horrifying truth 99% of people miss when they read about this crusade. They weren't just killing heretics, they were killing the possibility of doubt. They were murdering questions. In the modern world, they fight wars for oil, for the black blood of the earth that powers their machines. Old Man Hemlock's son, the one who travels with the salt caravan, he is one of us. He will pass the message. The message is the most dangerous part. It's hidden in a place no lord would ever think to look. A children's song. A simple folk tune your mother sang to you, and her mother before her. But they had a secret verse, one passed down in whispers. A verse that changed the song from a lullaby to a signal fire. A secret that could bring the nobility to its knees. Look away from the ground, boy, he rasps, his voice a low rumble against the howl of the wind. The fear is down there. The truth is up here. From a leather pouch at his belt, he pulls not a chisel, but a piece of charcoal. With a glance over his shoulder, a habit so ingrained it seems involuntary, he begins to sketch on a smooth, waiting block of limestone. It is not a cross. It is not a saint. This is Beltane. This is the night the veil thins not between heaven and hell, but between the living and life itself. Around a bonfire that spits and roars, figures dance. They are your neighbors, the blacksmith's wife, the boy who mends the fishing nets, the old woman whose herbs saved your sister's child from the flux. But tonight, they are not Christians. They move not for God, but for the hungry earth, for the promise of the harvest, for the raw, undeniable continuation of life in its most primal form. It means the knowledge is safe. One of us was here. You slip out into the moonless dark, a ghost returning to the shadows. You don't see the figure standing by the church light gate. It is the village priest. He did not see the cure, but he saw you leave the cottage. He saw the mother's tears of relief, and from the shadows, he watched her tuck the small woven charm into her apron. His knuckles are bone white around the crucifix hanging from his neck. To him, saving a life the church has already condemned is not a miracle. They told you they burned books to save your soul. The secret that changed everything is that they burned them to own your mind. The stone grinds against stone, a sound of grating teeth that echoes in the damp cellar. Your fingernails are torn, packed with grit and the cold earth of the monastery floor. But the block finally gives way. It doesn't fall. It pivots, silent as a conspirator, revealing a maw of perfect, ancient black. The air that spills out is a physical thing. They are trying to unmake you, to strip away your courage and leave you a gibbering animal. And in a moment of terrifying clarity, you realize the deepest secret of this place. This calculated cruelty, this weaponized space designed to manipulate and control your behavior, feels sickeningly familiar. It's the ancestor of the modern world's hostile architecture, the benches with metal dividers to keep the homeless from sleeping, the spikes in doorways to ward off the unwanted. It is the same cold, inhuman logic, using structure to enforce power and punish the desperate. The practice wasn't invented in the 21st century. You taught that a woman's soul was equal to a man's, that she too could become a perfect and lead a congregation. You debated theology openly in the town square. You created a thriving parallel society where knowledge, not obedience, was the path to salvation. You were building a world without the need for priests, popes, or cathedrals. And for that, you had to be exterminated. You can still hear the screams from Béziers, carried on the wind all these years later. Propaganda, painted on church walls and read from pulpits, will frame you as demonic rabble-rousers possessed by greed. The same way a king's proclamation might denounce a union leader today, framing a desperate plea for bread as an act of high treason. They want you to believe your ancestors accepted their chains. The lie is more comfortable. The truth is that they fought back with the only tools they had: their bodies, their silence, and their secrets. Ilara points to a crude map scratched into a wooden plank. The merchants will carry the word. It whips your wool tunic against your skin, a constant flapping reminder that one wrong step is a fall into God's arms, or so the priests say. You grip the rough-hewn scaffolding, knuckles white, the splinters of familiar pain. The world below is a smear of ants and carts. Your master, a man named Lothar, whose face is a roadmap of sun and stone dust, pulls you into the shadow of a half-finished gargoyle. His grip on your arm is like iron. The priest preaches that your body is a vessel of sin, a filthy cage for a pure soul. But what he's truly afraid of isn't what you do in the dark. It's what you remember there. The forest floor is a shock of cold, damp life beneath your bare feet. You press your toes into the moss and feel a current run up your spine, a kind of truth the stone floors of the church can never offer. The air hums with a forbidden energy, thick with the smell of wood smoke, crushed night-blooming flowers, and the musk of sweating bodies. A single bead of sweat rolls down his temple. The fever has broken its pact. The mother collapses into silent, racking sobs, clutching your stained hands to her face. You accept no coin. Your payment is the steadying breath of a child who will see the sunrise. But before you leave, you press a small, woven disc of reeds into the mother's hand. In its center is a tri-spiral, a symbol far older than the cross that hangs on her wall. It is not a charm for a Christian God. It is a sign for the village, because this town, this very square, stands on a fault line of forbidden knowledge, a history that leads directly back to the Cathar heresy, to the ruins of Montsegur where we began our journey. The final piece of our puzzle lies hidden deep within the castle built on those ashes, a place where all our secret histories converge. What is the one truth that ties the burned witch, the poisoned king, and this shattered clock all together? I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. He is in the light that falls on this page. He is in the mind that dares to read it. What they don't want anyone to ever know is that the Albigensian Crusade is an act of intellectual genocide. This isn't a war against a rival army. It is a war against an idea. The church built its power on a monopoly of information, on a world where only priests could read the holy word, interpreting it for a terrified, illiterate flock. But here, in the sun-drenched hills of Languedoc, you committed the ultimate sin. You taught everyone to read. From here to Blackwood Crossing, we all stop on the same day. Not a single sheaf of wheat will be bundled. Not a single stone will be hauled for the new keep. The harvest will rot in the fields. This isn't a riot. It's a strike. It's sophisticated, organized, and terrifyingly modern. They will call you animals for this. The stones of the great cathedrals are not silent. They scream a secret geometry the church calls heresy. What they don't want you to know is that their houses of God were built using formulas they publicly condemned as demonic. Knowledge stolen from the very cultures they sought to erase. You are 16 years old, and the wind up here, 300 feet above the mud and manure streets of Amiens, tries to steal the breath from your lungs. A boot heel on stone. You douse your lamp instantly, plunging yourself into absolute black. Your heart hammers against your ribs. It could be another keeper. Or it could be the Baron's guard, hunting for the source of a rumored water theft. Holding the secret of cleanliness is a heavy burden. But you're beginning to realize you're not just protecting a stream of clean water. You are the guardian of a memory, a truth so dangerous it had to be buried alive. And you are no longer sure you are alone down here in the dark. You mix the willow pulp with a little honey and warm water, creating a bitter, grainy paste. The boy's mother holds him up, her face a mask of exhausted hope. You coax the mixture between his cracked lips, whispering reassurances not to him, but to the life force flickering inside him. You wait. The candle gutters. The only sound is the wet sound of rotting thatch dripping outside and the boy's ragged breathing. Then, slowly, a change. The frantic rhythm of his chest begins to soften. The glassy sheen in his eyes recedes. The technology changes, but the principle is the same. Someone else defining the rhythm of your life, controlling your attention, stealing your time. They just found a more efficient way than a hammer. This act of destruction in your town square is not random. It is surgical. It is an erasure. The knowledge to build that clock, passed down through generations, has been declared a sin. The men who built it are now branded as heretics, their wisdom a threat. A shout becomes a chorus of ghostly screams. Your own heartbeat thunders in your ears, a war drum played by a madman. You see men stop, turning in circles, their eyes wide with terror, swinging at shadows that aren't there. The castle is speaking to them, whispering lies into their ears, and they are listening. Overhead, you see them, small, round holes in the ceiling, murder holes. You brace for the boiling oil, the classic defense. But what rains down isn't oil. You hear a soft, wet scraping from above, a thick, slow gurgle, followed by a dry hiss. It's a book of questions, written by a woman in Alexandria 1,000 years ago. It asks why the God of the Old Testament is so filled with wrath and vengeance, a God of war and jealousy. It suggests he is not the true God at all, but a lesser, corrupt thing, Rex Mundi, the king of this world. To the priests in Rome, this is a heresy so profound it must be erased with fire. To you, it is the beginning of truth. But true God, the good God, is not in their gilded churches. History calls this period dark, not because of ignorance, but to hide the constant burning embers of resistance. The leader, Elara, is not a warrior. Her hands are calloused from the fields, same as yours, but her eyes hold the dangerous light of forbidden knowledge. You hear the delicate, dry whisper of parchment as she unrolls a stolen tax ledger, a sound that feels louder than a scream in the suffocating silence. Her finger, stained with dirt and ink, traces the Lord's greed. 3 lordships, she says, her voice a low current that runs through the barn. Or is it the one truth that can save you? You have to believe it is, because in a world built on holy lies, a forbidden truth is the only weapon you have left. The ones who didn't just maintain the aqueduct, but who added their own secrets to this subterranean world. You've been told there are other passages, other chambers leading away from the main channel, places where forbidden knowledge was stored when the church began its great purges of books and ideas. Forgotten medicines, heretical philosophies, histories that name different kings and different gods. The water keeps the body alive, but what flows in the darkness beside it That is meant to keep the soul free. A sound echoes from a side tunnel up ahead. Not dripping water, it's a metallic scrape. Gas chromatography has analyzed the residue in excavated medieval pots. Pots just like the one you now scrape clean. They found the proof. These weren't random bubbling potions. They were sophisticated medicines. They couldn't patent your knowledge. They couldn't tax it. And if you can't control something, you demonize it. It's the same tactic used today when corporate interests with a patented product attack a cheaper, natural, or traditional alternative. The pattern is ancient and unbroken. The only thing that changes are the names they call you. They burned the books of Arab scientists whose mathematics and astronomy were centuries ahead of Europe's. They demonized the folk medicine of the village healer, the woman you go to when your child has a fever, calling her a witch. They shattered the water clocks of independent towns. It wasn't dark, it was being darkened. This isn't just about the past. Think about it. The church bell becomes the factory whistle. The factory whistle becomes the punch clock. The punch clock becomes the notification on your phone. The man in front of you takes a spear through the throat. You hear his gasp, the wet choke, and you step over his body, your own shield feeling impossibly small. This isn't architecture. It's a calculated equation of death. You make it to the top, somehow, and burst into a long, narrow hallway. Your ragged breathing echoes. But it doesn't just echo, it multiplies. The sound bounces off the uneven stone walls, cunningly angled to distort noise, to throw it back at you from impossible directions. A single footstep sounds like a dozen. Your fingers are numb, not just from the Pyrenean cold that lives in the marrow of this fortress, but from fear. You are a Cathar perfect, one of the chosen few. But tonight, you are not a preacher. You are a smuggler. Your treasure isn't gold. Gold is just metal, a dead thing from the earth. What you carry is alive. It breathes. You slide the last book into the oilskin satchel. The dry whisper of parchment against the slick cloth is the loudest sound in the world. This is not a desperate mob. It is a council of war. Your weapon is not the pitchfork you clutch. It's tines worn smooth by a lifetime of labor. Your weapon is a secret. What they don't want you to know is that this has happened before, hundreds of times. 99% of people believe feudalism was a stable system of loyal obligation. The truth, buried in suppressed monastery ledgers and court documents fire-blackened by official decree, is that it was a protection racket held together by the constant grinding threat of starvation. They passed down secrets in whispers, preparations made of alum and egg whites to protect the skin, psychological tricks to manage the pain, ways to fool the priests who examine the wounds 3 days later, a way to cheat God's own test. The priest is lifting the iron now with a pair of long tongs. The heat washes over your face, a physical blow. The crowd gasps. The moment has come. You feel the small pellet under your tongue, a secret hope against an ocean of orchestrated despair. Is it a lie? Is it a peasant's fantasy? You and the handful of other keepers, a disillusioned mason, a widowed herbalist, a disgraced scribe, do this not for the lords who hoard the water, but for the system itself, because the water is not the only thing this tunnel protects. As you walk, your lamp flickers across a marking on the wall. It's not Roman, it's newer, perhaps a few hundred years old. A serpent eating its own tail, but inside the circle, a single open eye. It's the mark of the antecessors, the keepers who came before you. Buried deep within the fibers of this bark is a potent spirit of its own, a compound that silences pain and commands fever to retreat. In 800 years, they will give it a scientific name, salicylic acid, and sell it in little white pills called aspirin. But tonight, it is simply the cure. The story they will write about women like you is one of demonic pacts and midnight rituals. But the truth, hidden for centuries until our own modern science unearthed it, is a conspiracy of knowledge. The term Dark Ages was invented in the 1300s by the Italian scholar Petrarch, a man of the early Renaissance, to flatter himself and his era. He framed the centuries before him as a dark pit of decay and ignorance from which his generation was heroically emerging. It was the ultimate marketing pitch. Create a problem, a lost, ignorant humanity for which you are the only solution. The church, seeing the power in this narrative, co-opted it. They buried the evidence of continuous scientific and cultural development that occurred outside their control. This is your path to securing the tower, but something is wrong, terribly wrong. The stairs spiral to the left, clockwise. You are right-handed. Every swordsman here is right-handed. To climb, you have to turn your body in a way that puts your sword arm against the central pillar, useless, while your unshielded left side is completely exposed to the defenders above. They knew. The man who laid these stones knew the mechanics of your body better than you do. He built a staircase not to be climbed, but to be a funnel for slaughter. The church will tell you 20,000 people died at Béziers for God. 99% of the world still believes it was a holy war. But the secret they buried under the ashes of men, women, and children is that this entire crusade, this river of blood, is about a library. Your library. The smoke is a constant prayer on your tongue. It seeps through the stone walls of Montségur, a greasy ghost that smells of burning pine and something sickeningly sweet you try not to name. They taught you that your ancestors were mindless brutes. They lied. The woman speaking in the suffocating darkness of the barn can read, and the words she whispers tonight could burn the whole rotten system of feudalism to the ground. The air is thick, a sweet, sick perfume of rotting hay and damp earth, masking the sharper, metallic tang of sweat and fear. You are one of 20 souls huddled here, shadows clinging to one another in the shivering halo of a single tallow lamp. Outside, a sliver of moon offers no comfort. The old woman from the woods, the one they call a hedge witch, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, had found you. "Chew this," she had whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering across stone. "Don't swallow. Let it coat your tongue, your throat. The alchemists know things the priests have forgotten." She spoke of a network, a shadow conspiracy of healers and outcasts who learn to fight the system from within. It's the same cruel logic that drives modern manufactured scarcity, where a corporation buys the patent for a life-saving drug and jacks up the price, making a miracle a privilege. Control the resource, and you control the people who need it to survive. Your job is simple, and it is a death sentence if you are discovered. You walk the tunnels, checking for blockages, shoring up collapses with new mortar, your fingernails scraping against stone laid 2,000 years before you were born. The work is a prayer, a penance. You feel the wet, fibrous pulp give way under the stone, releasing a sharp, clean scent into the air. This is not a prayer, it is a formula. What they don't want you to know is that this is not witchcraft. It is chemistry. What 99% of people will never learn is that the accusations of dark magic were often a targeted campaign to eradicate effective female-led healthcare that the church could not control. You are not summoning a spirit. You are performing a precise, repeatable extraction. Your days are no longer yours to measure. They belong to the bell. They belong to him. What they don't want you to know is that this single, brutal act is a perfect metaphor for the biggest piece of historical propaganda ever sold. The very concept of the Dark Ages. 99% of people believe history was a simple, linear progression. The glory of Rome, 1,000 years of mud and ignorance, then the sudden, brilliant dawn of the Renaissance. This is a lie, a deliberate fact. Carefully constructed branding campaign. The air is thick with the metallic tang of fear and the iron of spilled life. You drop onto the stone walkway, your leather boots slipping on something wet and dark. Below, in the courtyard, the battering ram has finally broken the gate. The first wave of your brothers in arms surges through. You are supposed to feel victory. Instead, a cold dread begins to crawl up your spine. This feels too easy. You find the door to the nearest tower and kick it in, plunging into darkness. Your eyes adjust. A spiral staircase winds upwards. This, he says, his voice a low, dangerous hum as he taps the bowl of gunpowder, is how we open the door they locked. And you stare at the fine black dust, at the map of the heavens, at the location of a forgotten ruin. And you finally understand. He's not an alchemist trying to create a new substance. He's a revolutionary about to use a forgotten science to unmake the world. On it is a symbol you have seen before, scratched onto the doorposts of certain houses, hidden in the weaving of a blanket. A tri-spiral, an ancient mark of life, rebirth, and continuity. It isn't a charm against evil. It is a key, a sign that this woman is now part of something older and deeper than any church. A secret, life-giving sisterhood. She has just witnessed their power firsthand. Now, she must help to keep it hidden, or risk being consumed by the flames they are lighting all across the land. The system does, and the system was designed to protect its own. It's a dark mirror of our own world, isn't it? The gnawing truth that the quality of your justice often depends entirely on the weight of the gold in your purse. But here is the secret that keeps you from screaming. Here is the forbidden knowledge that whispers against the roar of the fire. Last night, in the darkness, a hand pressed something into yours. A small, waxy pellet wrapped in cloth. Their secret pipes, branching off this very channel, deliver them the gift of life while they sell the populace a slow and righteous death. This is the hypocrisy that holds the world together. Archaeological surveys in our time have proven it. Many monasteries and noble estates didn't just preserve Roman aqueducts and sanitation systems. They improved upon them. They had heated baths, flushing latrines, and clean drinking water, all while their sermons condemned the unwashed masses. They created the problem, a city deliberately starved of sanitation, and then sold themselves as the only divine solution. They are stained brown with walnut husks and green from comfrey. They are not soft, they are tools. Right now, they work with a speed born of ancient knowledge, a rhythm passed down from your mother and her mother before her, a chain of wisdom stretching back into the mist. You are crushing willow bark in a heavy stone mortar. The pestle makes a sound against the bowl, a dull, percussive thump, scrape, thump, scrape. It is the only other heartbeat in the room. This is the ASMR quality sound of a life being saved. The steady, rhythmic drip that has measured your entire life, drip, 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 is gone. The silence it leaves behind is louder than any scream. The ASMR of your entire town's life, the background rhythm of your reality, has just been murdered. Bishop Amalric raises a gloved hand, and his voice cuts through the stunned quiet. The Lord's time is the only time. The bell will tell you when to pray. It will tell you when to work. It will tell you when to be. It is the theft of time itself. It is the imposition of control. The architects who designed these walls weren't trying to keep you out. They were trying to break your mind. 99% of people think castles are just stone and mortar, a passive defense against attack. The truth, buried in master builders' manuals for centuries, is that they were engines of psychological terror, designed to make you go insane long before a sword ever touched your skin. You taste blood and splintered wood. The siege tower has slammed against the parapet. And you are a wave of screaming, desperate men pouring over the edge. In the cage they built around our minds, he turns back to the table, to the bowl of inert, silent black powder. His finger gently touches the rim. The church buried the knowledge of the old world. They hid the maps, burned the formulas, and rewrote history to make themselves the sole keepers of the light. He looks at you, and for the first time, you see the fire behind his tired eyes. It's not greed, it's rebellion. The priest can only stare, his cross held tight in his fist, his faith shaken by a power he cannot comprehend and is trained to destroy. As Ilara cleans her hands, her work finished, she moves to the new mother's side. The priest has already left, muttering about reporting this to the bishop. The danger has not passed. It has merely changed its shape. Ilara presses a small, smooth object into the exhausted mother's hand. You catch a glimpse of it in the candlelight. A piece of carved rowan wood, no bigger than a thumb. He can choose a bar that's been in the fire for moments or for an hour. He can insist you carry it for 3 paces or 9. For you, the iron will be white hot. For the Lord's cousin accused of the same crime last year, it was barely hot enough to singe a parchment. After the trial, your burns will be wrapped in sanctified bandages. But for the wealthy, those bandages were often secretly treated with healing salves and poultices. For you, they will be rough linen, maybe even rubbed with salt to encourage infection. God doesn't judge. A forbidden luxury, a lifeline, and you are one of its keepers. 99% of people don't know this exists. They believe the only water comes from the contaminated town well or the sluggish brown river. They believe the constant plagues, the weeping sores, the fevers that steal their children in the night are God's judgment for their sins. That's the story the bishop preaches from his gilded pulpit, his own skin clear, his breath sweet. But you know the truth. The bishop, the baron, the wealthy guildsman, they never drink from the public well. His name is Thomas, and he is 7 years old. He has the fever. The monk has already been. You can still smell his visit, the cloying sweetness of incense he used to ward off the demons he claimed were clawing at the boy's soul. He bled him, of course. 2 fat black leeches now bloat in a clay bowl on the floor, a testament to his failure. He took a silver coin for his work, murmured a final prayer, and left the boy in God's hands. But you know, God has other hands. They are yours. You feel a tremor run through the crowd, a collective intake of breath. This is wrong. Your stomach clenches. This feels like watching a soul being torn from a body. The first hammer falls. The sound is not a simple crash. It's a wet, splintering crack, the sickening crunch of fine-tooled wood giving way. Then comes the shriek of snapping metal as the delicate brass gears are twisted into junk. A man next to you sobs, a raw, guttural sound. The water, the lifeblood of the clock, gushes out onto the stones, pooling in the cracks like dark blood. The weight of the secret feels like a physical stone in your stomach. But as you glance back, his eyes are no longer on you. They are fixed on a man in a simple brown cloak across the square. The beggar gives the slightest, almost imperceptible shake of his head. A warning. The man in the cloak is not buying fish. He is not looking at wares. He is looking directly at you. You have the message. And now, they have you. The hunt has just begun. A place no one has had reason to go for 200 years. The map you now see was made using the star chart, the one copied from the monk's hidden page, the one that cost that poor soul his tongue. It's not just a map, it's a key made of starlight and geography. For centuries, they sought the philosopher's stone, Elias says, his gaze distant, lost in a history you can barely comprehend, something that could perfect base metals. They were looking in the wrong place. The imperfection isn't in the lead, it's in us, in this world. It suggested that a woman's hands could hold the power of life and death. And for the men building a new world of authority and control, that was the most dangerous heresy of all. A low moan comes from the bed, but it is a moan of effort, not death. Color is returning to the mother's cheeks. The bleeding slows, then stops. Alara's hands are slick with sweat and blood, but she has done it. A few moments later, a thin, wavering cry cuts through the suffocating silence of the room. A new life, saved from the brink. It was a rigged system, a weapon of social and psychological terror, forged by the church and the nobility to keep the world in its proper, brutal order. When historians finally analyzed the surviving church records, they uncovered the shocking truth the powerful tried to bury. The wealthy and the noble had a success rate in these trials that approached 90%. The poor, the accused like you almost always failed. It wasn't God's will. It was physics. It was control. They controlled everything. The priest murmurs a blessing over the iron, but his eyes are measuring, calculating. The air is damp on your skin, carrying the scent of wet earth and stone, not the putrid perfume of the open sewer that flows just one level above your head. A faint, rhythmic sound reaches you, the gentle lap, lap, lap of moving water. You light your tallow lamp, and the tunnel springs to life. It's a perfect arch of Roman brickwork, impossibly precise, stretching into the gloom. And in the center, set in a channel carved from stone, flows a ribbon of water so clear you can see the sandy bottom. This is the aqua caelestis, the heavenly water. They buried this secret with the women they burned, but the earth remembers. You are in a room that is more womb than chamber. The air thick with the scent of time, wood smoke, and desperation. The only light is a single tallow candle, its flame shivering as if it too is afraid. It throws your shadow, huge and distorted, against the wattle and daub walls. In the corner, a child's breath hitches and catches. It is a sound like tearing silk, the sound of a life trying to unthread itself from the world. In an age where all information is at your fingertips, you must ask yourself why you feel more powerless than ever. They lied about the past. What else are they lying about now? A marvel of wood and brass, a symphony of gears and dripping water that sings the hours into existence. It is your clock. It tells you when to plant, when to trade, when to rest. It belongs to everyone, and therefore to no one. A man in robes the color of spilled wine, Bishop Amalric, watches from the edge of the square. His face is a mask of serene satisfaction. He doesn't need to lift a finger. His men do it for him. Broad-shouldered thugs in leather jerkins, holding hammers that look impossibly heavy. The secret, buried for centuries, is that the lowest of the low held the keys to the kingdom, their whispers a current of power flowing beneath the notice of popes and kings. The information you just received is the first piece of a map to something the church has killed thousands to find and to forget. The lost Cathar treasure. You drop a single coin into his cup. The metallic clink is your confirmation. You turn, melting back into the crowd. The beggar's instructions burning in your mind. It makes no sense. Unless the stars are not just for telling time. Unless they are for finding a place. He turns to you, his voice a dry rustle of leaves. The gold, he whispers, and your breath catches in your throat. It isn't a medal, boy. It's a place. He moves to the chart, his trembling finger tracing a line from the North Star, through the celestial dragon, to a point on the land. A forgotten castle, a ruin even in your grandfather's time. Perched on the cliffs, a week's ride from here. University-trained male physicians, with their theories of humors and their reliance on prayer and bloodletting, had abysmal success rates. They watched women and infants die and called it God's will. Midwives, with their botanical knowledge for pain relief and their practical, generationally tested techniques, saved them. Their success was an uncomfortable miracle that challenged a male-dominated world. It suggested knowledge could exist outside of Latin texts and church walls. It suggested a woman's body was not a cursed mystery, but a system that could be understood and healed. Your own breath catches in your throat. Your hands, the hands that have tilled soil, held your child, and mended cloth, are trembling. Soon, one of them will have to lift that screaming hot metal and walk 3 paces. 3 steps to prove an innocence you already know is irrelevant. What 99% of the people watching you don't know, what most people today will never learn, is that the trial by ordeal was the medieval world's most brutal form of legal theater. Your fingers, calloused and quick, find the loose stone behind a stack of brine barrels. It gives way with a soft, grinding sigh. Behind it, an iron ring, cold as a winter grave. You pull. A section of the floor, disguised as solid flagstone, scrapes open, revealing a darkness that breathes a different kind of air, cool, clean, and ancient. You slip inside, pulling the stone closed above you. The world of muck and misery vanishes. Down here, history holds its breath. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. The heretic's brand is now a conspiracy theorist label. The Inquisitor's pyre has been replaced by the quiet, cold hum of a server farm, burying truth not with fire, but with an avalanche of meaningless noise. They don't need to burn books when they can simply make you forget which one matters. The people of the past fought back. They built a secret, resilient web to keep the truth alive, because they understood that knowledge, shared freely, is the only real power. The greatest lie they ever told wasn't about God or the devil. It was about time itself. You are standing in the town square. The morning air, so cold, it feels like a blade against your teeth. It carries the scent of damp wool, wood smoke, and the metallic tang of fear. Before you, in the center of the cobblestones, is the heart of your town. Not the church, with its cold stone and promises of the next life, but the water clock. It's an ASMR trigger for a very specific kind of fear. It means a patrol is near, or an inquisitor's man. The message is clear. 7 crows on the north gate. Turn where the water runs red from the tannery. But you are not the only one listening. This shatters the medieval world you thought you knew. This isn't just about beggars sharing news of a generous lord or a cruel magistrate. This is espionage. Troop movements, political secrets, the location of hidden heretics. It all flows through this human internet, this bark net made of flesh and desperation. Recipes for acids that can dissolve iron, for vapors that can send a man into a dreamless sleep, for powders that can cleanse a wound and cheat the gangrene. Forbidden knowledge, real science veiled in the language of myth. Elias stops. The silence that rushes in is heavy, thick with unspoken purpose. He doesn't look at the finished powder. His eyes, pale and weary, are fixed on the wall, on the chart. It's his life's work. A madman's tapestry of astronomical data laid over a surveyor's map of the surrounding fiefdom. Stars and roads, constellations and castles. And this is the secret they buried under pyres and drowned with accusations. 99% of people believe the witch hunts were born of superstition and mass hysteria. But the truth is a far colder, more calculated thing. The book they used, the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, was not a field guide to identifying demons. It was a weapon of mass destruction aimed at a specific target. The female-led healthcare system that had served humanity for centuries. It was a political tool designed to eliminate the midwives. Why? Because they were competition. They believe they are about to witness a miracle or a damnation. They are about to witness a murder disguised as faith. The air is thin and cold, heavy with the smells of incense, damp wool, and the unwashed sweat of 100 terrified bodies crammed into God's house. You can hear the soft, rhythmic puff of the bellows feeding the coals. It sounds like a dying beast's last breaths. With each push, the iron bar nestled in the flames glows angrier, shifting from a dull cherry to a pulsing, malevolent white. The greatest lie they told you wasn't about the dragons or the righteous kings. It was about the filth. They want you to believe that everyone waded through the same river of human waste, that the stench of death and disease was the great equalizer. This is the secret they buried under centuries of comfortable myths. The squalor was a choice, but it wasn't the people's choice. You press your shoulder against the cold, sweating stones of the butcher's cellar. The smell of blood and offal hangs thick in the air, a familiar cloak. But you're not here for meat. This series is about uncovering that lie. We will follow the trail of that hidden symbol, from plague pits to alchemists' labs, revealing the secrets the powerful buried. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. The cost of knowing this truth was a heretic's pyre. The cost of it remaining hidden is our own ignorance. They broke the world with fear and ignorance, then sold themselves as the only ones who could fix it. They manufactured a dark age, and then they sold the dawn. Their most powerful weapon wasn't the sword. It was convincing you that you were small, stupid, and utterly alone. This is the pattern they buried, the blueprint they are still using. Look around you. You see it in how profound questions are flattened into angry slogans, in how ancient community wisdom is mocked, while a new technology is sold as the only salvation. If the church ever found out that a village was surviving the divine wrath of God, not through prayer, but through the application of forbidden pre-Christian knowledge, they wouldn't send doctors. They would send inquisitors. The plague can only kill your body. The church, for a secret like this, will burn your soul for eternity. His staff, held loosely in his right hand, begins to tap the cobblestones. The wet thud, 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 thud is a sound lost in the market's din, but to you it's as clear as a church bell. It's a sequence, a number, 7. His gaze drifts toward the northern gate, where the condemned are displayed in iron cages. 7 crows. You feel a cold knot tighten in your gut. He then scrapes the bottom of his empty cup with a dirty fingernail, a dry, rasping sound that cuts through the noise. He's making the powder finer than any dust you've ever seen, a substance so utterly unified, it looks like a shadow given weight. You were taught that the prima materia, the first matter, was a philosophical concept. But looking at this impossible blackness, you realize it is real, and it is not for making gold. You've read the newly translated texts with him, the ones smuggled from Cordoba, hidden inside pious prayer books, dismissed by scholars as mystical nonsense. You now see them for what they are, coded chemical formulas. It is a forbidden practice, a secret passed down from mother to daughter for 1,000 unwritten years, a way to command the womb to contract, to close the vessels that are weeping life away. The priest stops his prayer. His eyes widen in horror. To him, this is not medicine. This is a demonic pact, a woman laying hands on the sacred, suffering vessel of childbirth, attempting to cheat God of his due punishment for Eve's sin. He sees a witch performing an unholy rite. You see a doctor performing a miracle. They tell you God will deliver the verdict. This is the first lie. The man stoking the fire, the priest with the hollow eyes, he has already passed sentence. The metallic tang of fear coats your tongue, thick as clotted blood. You are the accused, standing on the cold flagstones of the nave, and you know this has nothing to do with God. This is a horror show, meticulously staged, and your soul is the price of admission. The crowd is a wall of silent, hungry faces, their eyes wide and reflecting the orange glow of the brazier. In the center is not the earth, but the sun. What does this impossible, heretical map of the heavens truly reveal? Your shovel, its wooden handle worn smooth by your father's hands, has a small symbol burned into its base, almost invisible. A tri-spiral inside a circle. It's a mark of allegiance to a truth they tried to burn from existence. What they don't want you to know is that a vast underground current of knowledge persisted long after Rome fell, flowing between farmers, midwives, and masons. This was not an age of ignorance. It was an age of engineered ignorance. The powerful didn't lead you out of darkness. They created it to make their own light seem brighter. This was their university, hidden in whispers and symbols, an education for the common person that taught them they were not a cog in a machine, but a thread in a tapestry. This was the ultimate threat to a world built on a ladder. They couldn't disprove this knowledge, so they suppressed it. They couldn't outcompete it, so they demonized it. The greatest secret, the one 99% of people will never learn, is that the Dark Ages were not an accident. They were an invention, a deliberate act of intellectual warfare to consolidate power. She knows the world you came from, the world of blind faith and festering cities, where people die with prayers on their lips because they were told knowledge was a sin. She knows that this village is an island of reason in an ocean of terrified superstition. And you realize the most terrifying truth of all. The plague is not the greatest danger to these people. The greatest danger is discovery. This is the vagabond's cant, and what the authorities who tried to document it in their secret dictionaries never understood is that it's more than words. It's a living system of gesture, sound, and symbol. It is the original encrypted network, a web of information that travels faster than a king's messenger, passed between the people no one ever looks at. His eyes, blank and distant, flicker toward you for a fraction of a second. The signal is received. His chant changes, the tone dropping half a step. This is for you. They burn the researchers and call them witches. They dismiss breakthroughs as demonic bargains. Because a world where man can make his own miracles is a world that has less need for theirs. The sound is the only thing that betrays the secret. It's not the bubbling of a pot or the roar of the furnace. It's the whisper-soft, rhythmic scrape of the pestle against the bowl. An ASMR quality secret, a dry, sandy hiss that speaks of immense pressure and patient grinding. You watch as she dips her hands in a bowl of hot water steeped with yarrow and shepherd's purse, herbs the church dismisses as pagan nonsense. Her fingers, though wrinkled, are steady and sure. She leans over the dying woman, whispering words not of scripture, but of ancient comfort, woman to woman. Then she begins. She places her hands on the mother's abdomen, firm and knowing. She starts a deep, rhythmic massage, a technique that looks both shockingly intimate and profoundly medical. Her knuckles press, her palms knead. The figure carries not a torch, but the cold, hard iron of the church's authority. And you know, in that sudden, gut-wrenching stillness, that the price for tonight's joy is about to be paid in blood. As the hammering starts on the scriptorium door, you do the unthinkable. You brace the book, grip the top of a page, and tear. The sound is a scream in the silent room, the sharp, violent rip of vellum, a sound like tearing flesh. You shove the stolen page into the sleeve of your robe, your skin prickling where the forbidden knowledge now rests. Just as the door splinters inward, you look down at your prize. It's a star chart, but it's unlike any you've ever seen. The constellations are wrong. The celestial spheres are absent. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But you are not what they will say you are. You kneel, and with a calloused finger, you trace a complex spiral in the damp soil, a pattern learned from your mother, who learned it from hers. It dictates crop rotation, not by prayer, but by lunar cycles and the secret language of the soil. It is a science far beyond what the priest preaches from his inaccessible Latin book. You were looking for the secret, a hidden grimoire, a forgotten king's tomb, a single, world-changing truth whispered in a dying language. But you finally understand. The secret was never just one thing. It was a network. You trace the tri-spiral symbol on the cold stone, its lines flowing into one another, and the truth rushes in. It isn't a god or a spell. It is a map of a forbidden idea that the movement of the stars, the turning of the soil, and the rhythm of your own heart are all part of the same story. You look closer and you see it. Over the door of every single house, carved into the lintel, is not the cross of Christ, but another symbol. It is ancient, a tri-spiral flowing within a perfect circle. It's a mark of a different faith, a different power. A woman looks up from her work, her eyes meeting yours. There is no fear in them, only a deep, weary intelligence. She knows what you're thinking. But you see the truth. You see the language. 99% of people think the underclass is a chaotic, desperate mass. They have no idea it's one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks ever conceived. They don't see that the beggar's rhythmic, droning chant isn't a prayer. It's a time signature, a beat against which information is passed. His left hand, curled around a wooden cup, taps a nail against the rim. It's not a nervous tick. It's a signal. The way he shifts his weight from his left foot to his right isn't about easing pain. It's a directional marker. 99% of people, now and forever, will believe men like him were greedy fools, chasing a fool's dream. They don't want you to know the truth. That alchemy was the perfect cover story. A grand, glittering stage play of transmutation and elixirs, designed to hide the real work, the dangerous work. The church called it black magic, a heresy punishable by fire, because it offered a power that didn't flow from Rome. It's the same ageless story. When an institution wants to maintain control, it classifies any independent thought that threatens its authority. The mother on the straw-stuffed mattress is pale as milk, her breathing a shallow flutter, a bird with a broken wing. Her life is draining out of her, pooling on the linens, a dark tide no one can stop, no one but the old woman by her side. Her name is Ilara, and her face, illuminated by a single tallow candle, is a map of secrets. While the priest saves the soul, she intends to save the life. She ignores his prayers, his glares, his very existence. Her focus is absolute. The drumming grows faster. The air crackles, the dance becoming a frenzy of shared, defiant life. Then the drumming stops. The silence is more shocking than any sound. Every dancer freezes, their bodies locked in mid-motion. The only sound is the hiss and crackle of the bonfire. A collective breath is held in 100 chests. A silhouette stands at the edge of the firelight, a shape that doesn't belong here. It is not one of the dancers. It is not a spirit from the woods. A lifetime of quiet obedience shatters against the roaring certainty that this is an unforgivable sin. You stand, your stool scraping loudly against the stone. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. You move toward the forbidden alcove, your movements wooden, clumsy with terror. You risk your soul with every step. You pull a heavy tome from the shelf, its leather cover cool beneath your trembling fingers. De Sphericus Modibus, on celestial mechanics. With a grunt, You heave it open. The pages are filled with diagrams and equations that feel like a secret language. 99% of people believe medieval peasants were filth-covered simpletons. This is the single most successful propaganda campaign in human history, built to conceal a truth they tortured and killed to protect. The pre-dawn air is a blade in your lungs. Mist clings to the ground, thick and white, and the smell of wet earth and manure is the only world you know. Your boots, scraps of leather your wife stitched together, are already soaked. The cold mud, a constant, unwelcome companion. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog.